2 o'clock. I guess we're about ready to start our meeting. So we'll wait till everyone gets seated. So should we ask for Rachel first?
You've got Rachel for sure, and who else is on the line?
Rob.
Rob.
Okay, could I have a motion to allow Rachel and Rob to be on, Sharon and Linda? Thank you. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, nay? Motion carried. Everybody's on. Okay, approval of the minutes of October 26th, 2021. Paul? Phil? Any questions, comments, additions, changes? Seeing none? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Motion carried. Well, I thank everyone for coming here today. This beautiful day. You could be outside enjoying the warm sunshine, but you're here with us, so we appreciate that. Okay, informational items, monthly financial report. Julie, see you didn't play hooky today.
I think this is already on, right?
Yes.
All right. Hello. Welcome back, everybody. I am back. Randy is out today. So before you have September in your packet, so we're 9 months in, 3/4, getting there. General fund revenues year to date, we're about 5.2 million, or 16% higher than last year. So that's doing good. A lot of that has to do with the intergovernmental revenue and charges for services. So charges for services have been rebounding back to pre-COVID levels, and then intergovernmental revenues are, your income tax, sales tax, PPRT, etc. The two areas in revenues, if you look at all the categories, the only two that are not at level would be what should be expected, because they are recorded in period 13. So that's your transfers and the penalties on property taxes. So revenues, we're doing good. General fund expenses, we are 5.8 million higher than last year. However, just over 5 million of that was because of the transfers that the board approved in August. So we're still pretty much on par with where we should be. High level for sales tax, we are just about through August, so everything the state has reported to us through August, we're about 2.1, almost $2.2 million higher than budget expectations. A lot of that has to do with the level playing field that has come in well beyond what we expected. When we budgeted for it, we had COVID-19 that we had no idea, and then even with the greatest experts, it just depends on your residents, and there's a whole bunch of factors that go into it. So we're doing good there. Income taxes were about 36.6%, or 1.1 million above our budget expectations. So again, we're doing good. It keeps being a positive trend that so we have 7 out of 10 months that are the highest ever in the last 24 years. So that's great. There's two primary factors that I mentioned in here, which are mentioned in greater detail in the IML report that I submitted. For those who like to read a lot or get bored before you go to bed, is the rebounding labor market and extraordinary corporate income tax receipts. So that's two reasons why the income tax is higher. And then I think I reported on this, but I can't remember. The PPRT for October was extraordinarily high. Again, the business income tax has been doing really well, so the business income that goes to that revenue source is doing well. And the main reason why that was higher in October had to do with the reconciliation that the state did at the state level. So they'll transfer out money of what they expect to do in refunds, and if they transfer out more than they refund, we get money back. And the reverse for the opposite scenario. So they transferred out more than they returned, so we got a bunch of that money back. So then the PPRT revenue is really high. So we're gonna blow that revenue out of the water. So I kind of mentioned it briefly. I did include the IML. They go into really good depth. I use that a lot when we do the revenue forecasts and this report. Coming from city government, I still go to my previous resources, even though I know there's stuff with the county. So the only other thing I think I have in here to highlight is that this last month, both the COPS Fund and the Risk Management Fund are no longer reported as funds below policy, so that's great. You guys have working really hard to get the risk management, so we're good. Hopefully that will stick. And then at the end of the year, which I believe in November, you guys approved a budget transfer for the Circuit Clerk Automation Fund, so that fund should clear out once those monies are transferred. So at the end of the year, we really only have one small fund who hopefully will rebound once revenues really kick back, and then heading to Noakes. Other than that, we are doing really well. So that is all the points I drew out of the monthly financial report. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Julia, that was very positive. Just what a year can make a big difference. Anyone have any questions, comments for Julie? Keep it going.
Okay.
Keep it going. Thank you.
There was one other item I did include. Jan did update it to your electronic packet, and then I believe she said that if you picked up a paper packet, it was in there. As you guys know, since September, the finance department has been taking over accounts payable, and so Mr. Fennell and Scott and I believe Randy have met as to a report that we can submit to you guys on a monthly basis. So the actual tangible number section of it looks it pretty much mirrors what the auditor, so that shouldn't be anything new. One request, I know that this committee did ask if there's any exceptions, so not an attempt to...
I think that's in the next committee. The executive
did I not?
No, it's in the next committee.
Oh, okay.
But that's okay.
Okay. That's okay.
I didn't see it in here, but I know it's for...
Well, I since I did it later, I wasn't able to put it as an actual item, so she was able to put it on the monthly financial report. But I can do that at next committee if that's your preference.
Yeah, because I'll probably have some questions during that time.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, heading to Oaks financial report. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your packet contains the Headington Oaks financials for September 2021, and I'll be happy to try and answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, I think most of the questions are going to probably be answered on the next item being the financial plan, but I won't let anyone ask Paul some questions if they would like at this point. Not seeing any. Are you going to give the next, or is Shauna going to give the next?
I believe Sean is.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Right, in your packet is our chart of green buckets, if you will. No change to quarter one and quarter two. Those were just our report back and previously of what our activity was during those quarters. Quarter three, we finished out the end of quarter three. We do still have about a little over 7% of our AR is going through the court process. We talked about that when we first started those filings. Paul has been working diligently with Dana and her team in the state's attorney's office and Jenny. We have had a little bit of movement because it's in the court process. I'm not at liberty to go into details here, but if you have questions about that, talk to Paul or I, and we can kind of fill you in a little bit on that. But some good news potentially coming there. We are finishing out our project with RSM. You recall at the last board meeting, there was the resolution to allow us to maximize our reimbursements with Medicare. We are working on, now that those have been approved by the board, we are working on getting those entered in the system. And then we're going to do a follow-up call with RSM next week to hopefully wrap up that project and get the amended cost report filed with Medicare so we can get all of that wrapped up. And then at that point, we should be able to see some of those Medicare monies coming back into us. But I have to talk with them next week about the timeline once we file that amended cost report, when we can expect to get that payment from the feds. So we should have something coming, hopefully first quarter of next year related to that. And that will be 66%, I believe, of our reimbursement coming in from them, from CMS. So we're working to get that wrapped up. And then I know Paul and June are working still to any of the other outstanding accounts, go in and identify those and seek reimbursement and work with RSM to finalize that as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Always amazed at the speed or lack thereof in government in doing things, so we'll be glad when this is behind us. Thank you. Any questions, comments from anybody? Thanks, Shauna. Legislative update.
Mr. Chairman, just very briefly, the General Assembly in both chambers has put out their calendar for next year, and the General Assembly is going to convene on January 4th, and they're set to adjourn on April 8th. That's a very compressed legislative calendar, as Ms. Daly and Ms. Groves Allison can attest to during their day jobs. As a result, we are currently collecting from the offices and departments legislative proposals for the spring, but quite honestly, with such a compressed schedule, we really anticipate spending the overwhelming majority of our time playing defense and protecting the rights and revenues of county governments, and specifically us. I do not really expect, in talking with our lobbyists, that we'll see a significant amount of legislation move during the spring session. Additionally, and as a result of all those things, we are contemplating not having the legislative breakfast in January. That's a conversation we're having, obviously, with the city and the health department. We would obviously pick that up a year from now when the new General Assembly is seated after the November elections. But that's kind of the thought process at this time. I've talked to a couple of our local legislators. I've reached out to most of them. I've heard back from a couple of them in terms of what their comfort level would be, and the ones that I've gotten some response from there, they would be comfortable with not having the breakfast or skipping the breakfast this time around, given the compressed legislative schedule. Happy to answer any questions.
Any question for Mr. Sorrell? Okay, now don't go to sleep, folks. Let's all right. Well, any miscellaneous? I think we're at miscellaneous. Yes. Miscellaneous from anyone? Well, you're a very attentive group in spite of the weather outside. We appreciate it. So at this point, we will adjourn. Thank you very much.